Hello, everyone. Today I'm continuing on with my marathon 18 films in 18 days of films that are streaming on the Criterion Channel new to April 2021, which means they should be there for May and June. Uh, Today's film is Experiment in Terrors from 1962. It's directed by Blake Edwards. It stars Glenn Ford and Lee Remick. It opens with a spectacular credit scene. I assume it's the Bay Bridge in San Francisco. At nighttime, a really beautiful score by Henry Mancini, jazzy. Mancini wrote most of Blake Edwards' the scores for most, if not all, of Blake Edwards' movies. Philip Lathrop did the cinematography. Lee Remick is arriving home from a party. It's late at night. When she comes into San Francisco, she's driving up through the hills. She pulls into her neighborhood. There's a big sign saying Twin Peaks, which really caught my attention. She's living in the Twin Peaks section of San Francisco, I assume. And when she gets home, she parks her car in the garage. Who parks their car? Do people still do that? Park the car in the garage? But in the 1960s, I guess they still did. When she gets out of her car, the garage door closes. She wonders what's up. When she gets out of the car, she's grabbed from behind in a chokehold, and she's told that she's going to basically be blackmailed. She's a bank clerk. She's going to be blackmailed into stealing $100,000 from the bank. To me, the plan sounds very dubious. How this criminal could ever succeed in that doesn't seem very likely. Tells her, don't call anybody, don't tell anybody, or I'll kill you. As soon as she gets back in the house, he leaves. Of course, the first thing she does is go to the telephone to call the police. No, she doesn't call the police. She calls the FBI. I don't know. I've never seen a movie, where a crime is committed. Oh, I'm gonna call the FBI. But that's who she calls, and even just as much surprisingly, when she calls the FBI, she gets a high-level agent who's sitting around with two other high-level agents. They're sort of twiddling their thumbs, and although she can barely get a couple sentences out before the man who accosted her in the garage is in the house and stops the call, nevertheless, they get enough information. It seemed pretty scant, the information, but they were able to track down who made the call. The FBI agent is played by Glenn Ford, and he gives a stolid, workmanlike performance. He's I don't know. I always find him kind of dull, especially in this period of time in his career. But there's no humor in this film whatsoever, which is really surprising, given that Blake Edwards was his main strength as an artist was for comedy. But I assume he wanted to show his versatility. He had a big hit with Breakfast at Tiffany's, which was sort of comedy drama. And later in 1962, he releases Days of Wine and Roses, a very downbeat, depressing film about alcoholism with Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick again. And Lee Remick, who playing the terrorized woman, is really good in this. She doesn't have a whole lot to do, but she's good at acting terrorized, and then as a solid citizen, willing to cooperate with the FBI, putting her own life and the life of her sister, younger sister, who she lives with, in jeopardy. It's never really discussed that she's being used as a bait in all this, and rather precariously. But verisimilitude, if you're going to watch a lot of commercial Hollywood films, you got to put verisimilitude. Verisimilitude's got to go to the side. Stephanie Powers plays the younger sister, and I believe this is her first genuine role in a mainstream Hollywood film. She had made a film for Tom Laughlin, who later in the decade had a huge success with Billy Jack, and I think she was in a Tammy movie in a brief moment. And Ross Martin plays the plays the psychopathic, as it turns out, he's a psychopathic killer. There's, and he has a big TV success. He was very familiar to any moviegoer for many roles on television. I think he may have already been the co-star with Robert. I forget his name now, but in the Wild Wild West. And there's no real effort to make any of these characters anything more than archetypes in a suspense movie. There is a rather strange attempt to make Ross Martin, a psychopathic killer, human, in that he has financed the medical bills of a young boy who needs an artificial hip and whose mother he's friends with. And it's even almost kind of intimated that he wants to steal all this money to further pay the medical bills for this young boy. But then he's also portrayed as an absolutely psychopathic killer. But this is basically a movie about suspense. It's an exercise in the techniques of suspense, experiment in suspense, you might say. But for Lee Remick, and also the location photography is superb. I mentioned Henry Mancini's music, but the use of locations in San Francisco, which is a city just made, to have a movie made in it. And in fact, Days of Ryan Roses was filmed in San Francisco right after this film. It ends in the movie roams all around San Francisco, but the climactic scene is in Old Candlestick Park for a Giants Dodgers game. We get to see Don Drysdale on the mound, Harvey Keenan at the plate. For old fogies like me, those are legendary names in baseball lore. And so the final scene is certainly something different and suspenseful. Overall, I would say it was a bit of a disappointment for what I hoped for, but nevertheless, for a number of reasons, Lee Remick, Henry Mancini's music, the location photography by Philip Lathrop, made it worthwhile for me to watch anyway. So this is, like I say, this is the what is this? The fourth or fifth movie in the 18 movies. I'm losing count. I'm going so fast through them that I'll be talking about that are streaming on the Criterion Channel. So for anybody who has stayed with me through these brief comments on Experiment in Terror, I thank you and appreciate it very much. And you guys stay well, and I will catch you next time.